Hello everybody, it's me, Ralph the Movie Maker. So I saw this video this morning called In Response to Ralph the Movie Maker Wonder Woman Review, part 1 of 2. I guess he's making a part 2. I don't know if I'll discuss that one, but who knows. So I figured I haven't made some Patreon content in a while, and while I am editing a video right now, as you can see, as of this moment, I'm a little tired of editing, so let me take a break, and I figured let's bash this boy. Nah. This seems like a nice guy. I don't want to be too harsh on him at all because he seems like a nice guy who has some valid concerns about my Wonder Woman review. A lot of people do, so he's not alone. And I still stand by everything I said. I still believe in everything I said. Basically point by point. It's been a while since I've seen Wonder Woman, and I don't remember anything about it. But that's not going to detract from me, arguing his points. I have seen this video once before, like most of it, but I shut it off because I'm like, let me talk about it on Patreon so I can, get some content out of it. He's probably going to be, whoever made this video is probably going to want to see what I said in response to it, but this is only for Patreon people, so he's going to have to donate if he wants to listen to it, which is pretty funny. I bet he's going to complain about that too. Oh man, I'm sounding mean, but this is all good-natured fun. This is all good-natured fun. Alright, so let's just see what he has to say.
Very special occasion. This is my first two-part video. That's
Great.
Okay, let's get a little more serious. So, today's video is about Ralph the Movie Maker's Wonder Woman critique. The reason I chose this one is because this is where I stopped watching his content for a good while. In fact, I only recently got back.
Alright, so this is when he immediately reveals his hand. This is a guy who goes, and there's a lot of people like this, which I don't understand this mindset, because you watch some guy's review, that you like his channel. I assume he liked my channel. And then he saw this review and he went, I don't like him anymore. I gotta unsubscribe. I gotta stop watching his content. And it's like, over what? Because I have a different opinion than you on a movie? Like, you don't have to watch that movie. And if you don't want to watch some of my videos for a while, like, I don't understand this mindset. Like, I never watch, because there are critics I watch, not that I consider myself a critic, I don't know why people do, I think I just talk about movies, but, yeah, there's critics I watch on this site, and sometimes I don't agree with them. Well, in fact, a lot of the time I don't agree with them. I think they're either too soft or too heavy on certain things, and I just go, okay, well, I guess we got different opinions then, and it's very rarely I will stop watching someone because of their opinions. I mean, they'd have to be pretty consistently, out of sync with what I think.
Back into the swing of things with his fairly decent Mr. Robot video.
Okay, so he did watch my Mr. Robot video. That's good. When I talk about things positively,
Wonder Woman is a movie I like a great deal, and I was shocked when I first saw him revisit the movie,
poster.
and he was extremely negative towards it. It doesn't help that I feel he did a very poor job arguing his case against the movie.
I don't think I did a very poor job at all, but let's see.
So not only did I not agree with him, but I didn't understand where he was coming from. So what we're going to be doing today is a dissection of a dissection, similar to video.
And what we're doing is a dissection of a dissection of a dissection. This is difficult to do. Not for me, for him. What's harder than critiquing a movie is critiquing a critique. Often when you're critiquing a critique, you fall into the same trappings that you complain about the reviewer doing in your thing. So like he will criticize something I say, and then like he does the exact same thing. But we'll get to examples of that later on. Man, I'm really just complaining up front a lot. Let's get to these guys' points. I'm sorry about this.
Videos I've done in the past. Anyway, let's start.
It's nowhere near as bad as the chaotic, loud cringe fest that was Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. And it wasn't as incoherent or as ugly as Suicide Squad. But my god, is this movie boring. There's not a single thing this movie does exceptionally well. There are things it does pretty well, or kinda good, but nothing that made me go, wow, that's so unique, that's so cool, that's so different. So before you say I hate women, let's discuss the things this movie does well.
This is a rather odd segue into his discussion of what he finds good about the movie.
It's a joke. People call a lot of people sexist for not liking the movie, jokingly or not. So I made a joke.
Wonder Woman is a female-led film that many people have pointed to in regards to feminism, of course, but I don't think any serious arguments against your criticisms would boil down to you hated it because there's women in it.
But I have gotten that from people. They're like, oh, you're, what's one thing? Some girl tweeted me like, oh, this man is afraid of having a strong female character or something, with ignoring all my points. So, you know what, it is a valid concern. You know, I don't think hundreds of thousands of people watch your content. Not that it's an insult to you, but when hundreds of thousands of people do watch your content, you get shit like that. You get shit like, oh, you hated it because you hate women. So it's nice to address that, even if it's in a joking manner. Alright.
I mean, I would hope not.
Number 1, Gal Gadot. I'm not gonna say Gal Gadot is a good actress, because her acting leaves a lot to be desired.
Of course, it makes complete sense. Ares developed a weapon, the worst ever devised.
Ares, you mean Ludendorff?
I mean Ares. Ludendorff is Ares.
Odd clip to point to when it comes to bad acting. Let's play the context.
Ludendorff is Ares.
Sir, this is our last chance, our final chance to find out where the gas is and to learn how Ludendorff plays.
I suppose.
Okay, so I don't understand what he's saying here at all. He showed an extra 5 seconds of the clip that I didn't show, and I don't see how that makes her performance any better. I genuinely don't. And this is something he does a lot. He'll either suggest that I remove the audio to manipulate people, or remove certain sections of the scene to manipulate people. When that's not the case, I take a section of the scene I need to show that she either gave a bad performance or this person gave a bad performance, just to show it, and cut out all the fluff, because my videos are really long, and I like to cut out all the fluff, and so there would be no reason for me to show Chris Pine going on the phone immediately after. I don't see how him showing that makes the scene any better and makes her acting even better, because the acting is still bad, to me. And if you could disagree with that, that's fine.
It was acted correctly, though.
But I don't think she's that bad in this movie. There's some parts I think she's pretty good. Her scenes with Chris Pine work, and I bought her in the role. They easily could have cast some bimbo to play Wonder Woman, and then dress her up like a slut. But they got a woman who looks like she can hold her own. She fought in the Israeli army or something, I don't know. She looks like she could kick my ass.
A little bit of odd phrasing, especially referencing porn there, but
It's a joke! Again. Am I not allowed to be funny? Oh my god. You cannot find me funny, but let me fucking try. Every time I make a joke, it's gonna be like, that's odd phrasing. Yeah, it's odd phrasing. I'm a fucking entertainer first.
I do agree that they chose someone who could realistically do the things she does in the movie, and didn't pick someone who is over-sexualized. Or rather, wasn't chosen specifically for sex appeal. Alright, there we go, some common ground.
Number 2, the romance. What is usually the worst part of these movies is actually the best part of this movie. Their on-screen romance is pretty good. They have good chemistry, they play off each other well. It doesn't feel like two actors trying to rush along horrible dialogue.
But I saw you on TV. You were in New York.
Jane, I fought to protect you from the dangers of my world, but I was wrong.
Thor: The Dark World's romance is a decent example, but I can't help feeling like it comes off as cherry-picking to only show this movie to back up your point. Within just the MCU alone, we have Pepper and Tony, Steve...
Okay. Pepper and Tony... Peggy and Steve are just not... They're not good. I'm sorry. First of all, they're only in one movie together. And their romance, from what I remember, it's been a while since I've seen Captain America, is very forced and just like, oh, they're together now and just a scene. They're dating. I can't give you exact examples because it's been a long time since I've seen it. But yeah, I don't know when I said that all of these movies have horribly shitty romances and like on the same level as Thor: The Dark World. Thor: The Dark World's obviously the worst example, which is why I quote-unquote cherry-picked that one.
Steve and Peggy, and Peter Gamora's eventual but decidedly nuanced and complicated relationship. If we expand the scope...
Peter and Gamora don't have a romantic... That's why I like Peter and Gamora's relationship. Because it's not that traditional Hollywood, oh, they fall in love. Chris Pratt is falling in love somewhat because he's a playboy fucker. And Gamora is very cold and distant as a human being. or I guess she's not a human being, whatever she is, a green lady. And so she doesn't want to be in a relationship, even though there's part of her that does want to be. That's interesting. So that's why I like that one. And I didn't pick out Guardians of the Galaxy as a bad example. I said most of these superhero movies, the worst part are the romances. And I don't even understand how you can disagree with that, because in most of these movies, that's clearly the case. Here we go. There's none of this in Avengers. Batman vs. Superman. The romance with Henry Cavill and Amy Adams, I don't even remember, Lois Lane, that's her name, was just terrible. It was just terrible. They had no chemistry at all because Henry Cavill's a terrible actor. And God bless Amy Adams, she was trying. Dark Knight had a good one, but she died. Guardians of the Galaxy barely had anything. I guess Gamora and Chris Pratt a little bit. Oh, God. Logan had none. Oh, yeah. This was a very rushed romance in Spider-Man Homecoming. Ant-Man, I don't even think there was... Was it with that other woman? This woman? Was that supposed to be the romance there? Deadpool did have a pretty good one. I'll give Deadpool. Suicide Squad, of course, had Joker, the infamous Joker and Harley Quinn relationship, which was just shit. Even the original Spider-Man, this Mary Jane is a very one-dimensional character. And I guess it's fine because it's a cheesy fucking movie, but I would never say that was a good, well-fleshed-out romance. It's a bit better in 2, because Mary Jane's given a bit more of a you know, personality in 2. Superman Returns, that lady was bad. Of course, all the Thor movies are just bad in terms of the romance stuff. The Incredible Hulk, I didn't feel anything for their relationship at all. I think there was one in X-Men.
All comic book movies, we have Batman's relationships to Vicky, Catwoman, Dr. Chase.
Dr. Chase is not a good one.
Peter and Mary Jane, Wade Wilson.
Nah, Peter and Mary Jane is not a...
Wilson and Vanessa, and finally Shelley and Eric. The majority of the...
Who the fuck are they? Shelley and Eric. I've never even heard of it. Is this from like a show? I mean, I'll give you that one. I'm not saying there aren't good relationships in these movies. I'm saying it's usually the worst part of the movie. Even if it's good, it usually ends up being the most boring stuff in the movie, because people go there to see a superhero. They don't go there to see, oh, I'm gonna fall in love with a girl. I don't want to see that shit. I want to see people fight. Like, I'm giving Wonder Woman a compliment that it did the relationship okay. Not the best in the world, but it did it pretty well. And, like, you still gotta fucking, oh, it's, I don't understand why you said that. Well, like, would you say the best part of the original Batman is this relationship? Would you say that? It's probably the worst part of that movie, even though it's okay. Same thing with all these. Even Dark Knight. I love Dark Knight. I love Dark Knight. The least interesting stuff in the movie is the stuff with this woman. And it's still great, but if you were to ask me what's the worst part of Dark Knight, I'd go, maybe the romance. Not that it's bad, it's just, And this is The Crow. Alright.
From movies that are generally well received and influential, so I think it's a fair enough comparison. Even with the relationships I don't personally like, I can still see a decent argument for how someone can emotionally connect with it.
No. Not that shit.
My point is that
Daredevil and Elektra.
The
Remember their little fight on the jungle gym? Give me a break. Oh no, it wasn't a jungle gym. It was a seesaw, I think, on a playground. But yeah, that's not a good example. They did get together in real life, though. I think they got divorced. Don't quote me on that.
This is usually the worst part of these movies, has some basis, but not a large enough extent to be wholly true.
The marketing. This has nothing to do with the quality of the movie. Number 4, the art department. Aside from the horrible CGI and the bland cinematography, the sets, costumes, and lighting in this movie is all pretty fantastic. This movie succeeds where Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad fail in the visual department.
He thinks the cinematography is bland, a point he expands on later, so let's pull that forward.
Patty Jenkins is not a good action director, so all the action in this movie stinks. It's all boring and poorly shot, over-reliance on slow motion, which is just cheesy as hell. I thought they stopped doing this in 2005. Yet here she is.
This is a stylistic choice you disagree with, and I argue that it's actually well put together. I like the style, you don't. Let's agree to disagree and move on, shall we?
The movie depicts a dark...
Yep, That's all that one comes down to. I think it's corny as fuck. You don't. I think it looks like a 2005 Zack Snyder movie. Very dated and bad, and you don't. And that's, that's all there is to say about that point.
Cold, brutal world. But at the same time, it doesn't look ugly. The contrast between the colors and lighting in the Wonder Woman Island, or whatever it's called, and the World War I era London, even the contrast between Wonder Woman's bright costume and the dark battlefield, is really neat. Good job, Patty Jenkins. If only you put that much effort in the script.
Well, I think credit should also be given to Lindy Hemming and her team for the costume design.
Of course. It's obviously not entirely... it's probably none of Patty Jenkins' doing. That, the costume design and the set design. That's all production design people. But I wanted to make a joke connecting segment 1 into segment 2, where I go, good job, Patty Jenkins. If only you put that much effort into the script, and then immediately go to the script. It's this thing the reviewers do. You need a thread to connect yourself to the next thing. And that was my thread. And I even worked in a little joke there. A little editing joke. If only you put that much effort in the script. Cut! The script, number 2, That's a thing I did. Do you think it would have worked for the flow of my review for me to stop and go, oh yeah, it's really the production design people, and this woman and this woman and this woman and these people who did it? Oh, whatever. I'll leave it there.
She helped create costumes for James Bond in the Dark Knight trilogy. She's a really talented person and seems really sweet in real life.
Number 2, the script. It's so bad.
They're everything you say, but so much more.
Everything from the plot to the dialogue is so obvious and corny and bland.
I'll be refuting this claim point by point as he brings up further evidence. But I first want to bring up an interview Patty Jenkins gave in which she discusses how she was influenced by Richard Donner. Last interview clip for a while, sorry.
So I love all superhero movies, and I actually kind of believe in them as a metaphor for our own experiences. Is like, what if I was? But I was missing the kind of superhero movie that got me interested in the first place, which really started with Superman, which was something incredibly beautiful, powerful, funny, grand, big game, lacking cynicism. And I sort of felt like I hadn't seen that exactly for a while. And so that was my vision, was not to be more niche than that or more modern than that in some new kind of way. I said, I think Wonder Woman is the grandest superhero that there is, and so let's go back in time and make a great classic film and be very modern about it. But like, go for the gusto of the big, beautiful filmmaking. And so that was what I wanted to do. And and interestingly, that is a very specific way of doing it. It's not a no-brainer to do it that way. So I'm so lucky that the moment came where that was a vision they really got behind, and I felt incredibly supported by Warner Brothers in making something that's a little bit unusual in that way.
Now then, keep that bit in mind for a bit, because I'll be building on it bit by bit later.
Okay, let me just talk about that interview for a bit. Superman, the original one, came out 1978. Right? I think so. Yeah, 1978. Okay? We live in the year, or I guess at the time this movie was made, it was probably 2016. But you're in the year 2016. You can't be making the same cornball, shitty fucking superhero movies that existed in 1978. You can't recapture that magic. It's dated. Superman's a charming movie for what it is, but it's dated. Okay? And if you want to make an epic, if you want to capture that same scope that Superman did at the time, then you need to make something new. Everything she said of having a non-cynical, funny, entertaining superhero movie, that's what Marvel's been doing. That's why I like them. They've been making movies like that forever. The Spider-Man and Avengers. Those are fun superhero movies. And Wonder Woman isn't funny or charming or epic or original on any level. So, I mean, you can say that that's what she was trying to go for, and I commend her for that, but I don't think she did a very good job. I don't think she did a good job at all of wowing me, of making me laugh, of making me feel anything. Whereas the Marvel movies do. So yeah. I mean, I'm not even refuting a point he made, I'm just refuting the interview. I did see that interview because when I edit these videos, I watch all the interviews of all the directors, and that's how I incorporate clips of them into, my reviews. And some of them are gold. So, that's just my process there.
This movie is essentially Thor and Captain America combined in one. It combines both the fish-out-of-water elements of Thor and a very Captain America-like character.
Yes, because Thor is the only example of a fish-out-of-water protagonist in a superhero film. Also, Captain America is the only superhero film that also doubles as a period piece. They're contemporary...
I don't know why he uses the, I don't know what that is, Japanese, Chinese, I don't know why he uses those posters, maybe it's just a stylistic thing. But I'm not saying that Thor's the only movie to do that. I'm saying these movies are written by a committee of people, you understand? They're written by a bunch of people, and there's producers on top of them going, you need to make it like this movie and this movie and this movie, because these movies were successful. And DC all the time, all they do is just look at Marvel movies and try to copy it. So DC looked at Thor, and they looked at Captain America, which were very much influenced by Superman. And I bet they also looked at Superman because Patty Jenkins insisted. And, and they took elements from each of them. So it's half Thor, and then in terms of the plot, it's basically plot point by plot point. Captain America, the first one. The first Avenger. Yeah.
Examples and should be acknowledged, but they're obviously not the main influence.
So let's go through this whole movie.
That's not, that is the main influence. That is the main influence, was that. That's why it took plot point by plot point. That same structure as Captain America.
Voiceover that only shows up in the beginning and end of the movie that lazily explains the plot.
I used to want to save the world.
Haven't I heard this criticism before?
I used to want to save the world.
Narration.
Oh.
Okay, so you're saying I took that criticism from CinemaSins? One, I don't watch CinemaSins. CinemaSins is dog shit. I don't know if that's something you believe in too, but I thoroughly believe that. I've never seen a CinemaSins video. I don't think I've seen a CinemaSins video in like 2 years. And I guess what you're insinuating is that I saw that video and just copied his point, or that I make the same hack point he does. Narration at the beginning of a movie is lazy, unless you have a very, very good reason for doing it. And, there are good reasons for doing it. Mad Max Fury Road has narration at the beginning and end, but that's because it tries in a way to mimic the style and feel of a fairy tale, and fairy tales usually start with a narration explaining the backstory, which is, I like that stuff. And he goes on for like a minute or two, just showing Nick Spheres, who makes great videos, explaining like how good movies used them for reasons, that are reasons that Wonder Woman did not use it. I forgot what. Let me just continue to play this.
Framing is to explain why she is the way she is, why she gave up fighting for so long and the like, and strengthen her resolve so she can continue doing good.
No, it's lazy. That's what it is. It's what these studios do, because they either think people are too dumb or they don't convey Wonder Woman's beliefs well in the movie. So they go, let's throw in a thing at the beginning of the movie to lazily explain Wonder Woman's morality and give us some kind of thread to go into the story. It's a lazy thing to do, and so many movies do it that it becomes just boring to see. So wouldn't you prefer if Wonder Woman started in a more exciting, interesting way that 1,000 other movies haven't done already? But no, Wonder Woman, we just go in, and it's voiceover narration, and it doesn't show up again at all until the very end. And we don't get any valuable insight or information into Wonder Woman because of it. Yeah, cut that out.
Thus, the movie works on a literal level, Wonder Woman in World War I, and a more symbolic level, Wonder Woman reminiscing about World War I, and how she contextualizes her experiences, what she remembers about it, a conversation with Steve, a dance at night, and so on. It's not super deep, but it essentially justifies a lot of stylistic decisions made with the film, by turning the medium into how Wonder Woman feels about the event. So why is that important? Well, Patty's goals were to get you to see yourself as Wonder Woman, and I feel framing it in this regard helps remove narrative boundaries between you and her.
No, it doesn't. I don't understand what he's saying at all. Because if you would cut out this narration, and cut out the beginning and end of the movie, which I think are terrible, where Wonder Woman's just in modern day reminiscing, and the only reason that's in there, by the way, is so that they can tie it in with the Justice League movie, so we know what Wonder Woman's up to now. That's the only reason that's in there. I hope you know that. But, like, you could have just started the movie with Wonder Woman in World War I, and I would have connected with her immediately. You know, it's a thing called character development. And if you do it well, you don't have to do tricks like lazy narration and showing Wonder Woman as a kid.
This beautiful place. But I knew so little then.
I hate how this movie starts.
You hate how it pans down into this? Well, fair enough, I guess. I think it looks pretty neat.
Well, I wasn't just referring to this, but yeah, I think this is shit. By the way, the world looks weird. I didn't even mention this, but why the fuck are the clouds, like, so big and pronounced? Why did they make the Earth look like this? This is what the Earth looks like. It's nice and spherical. What the fuck is this?
Little then.
It helps to show Diana's worldview, a bit literally, I might add.
It doesn't help show Diana's worldview. How the fuck does that show Diana's worldview?
Then she walks in looking, like, way too confident.
Looking way too confident? She's just walking into work. Is she supposed to look, like, super depressed or something?
No, she looks like she's runway modeling, and I make this point.
Let's be fair and hear the rest of his point.
So this is when we begin
Good,
Gal Gadot's runway modeling. I don't hate Gal Gadot in this movie, again, but this thing she does, which bothered me even upon the first viewing. She's always posing. Gal Gadot is trying way too hard to look pretty in every single shot she's in. She always looks confident, even when she isn't. She looks like a model, pretending to be scared. She always walks like she's on a runway. Like, stop with your, oh, I'm gonna tilt my head down and look straight up.
I honestly think you're projecting a little bit, because I don't see that at all of her performance. But don't let me fool you. Here's some examples of when she isn't confident.
Okay. You know what? Let's see the examples when she's not confident. This is the key, I think, to why she's not good in this movie, is she never fully just devotes herself. She's always posing like she's in a runway. And I gave many good examples here. I showed many shots of her either, like, standing, I'm tough, or she's, like, tilting her head down and looking straight up, which is a look I'm getting sick of. It's in all these fucking media. It was in Stranger Things recently. Like, it's the new, oh, this is the new I'm a badass pose. It's this fucking thing. Like, stop doing this shit. Yeah, here we go. Here's another one. Oh yeah, here's another one right here. I mean, this isn't the only example, but it's like it's become this new cliche now. Where, like, people think they look tough when they tilt their head down and look straight up, and it's something she does a lot, and I think it's just silly.
She looks like a model, pretending to be scared. She always walks like she's on a runway. Like, stop with your, oh, I'm gonna tilt my
yeah,
head
there we
down
go.
and look straight up.
I honestly think you're projecting a little bit. Isn't confident convince you that she really isn't that bad at all?
Ares is dead. They can stop fighting now. Why are they still fighting? Stay away from me! I understand everything now. It isn't just the Germans that Ares has corrupted. It's you too. All of you.
And then we get bad music.
Okay. So, first of all, I don't think those were good performances at all. I thought she was acting pretty bad in those. But let's just say, hypothetically, she was good in those scenes, right? You don't measure a performance by 2 moments where she was good. Let's take Meryl Streep or Daniel Day-Lewis, right? They're good in every scene they're in. Every line of dialogue is on point. That's why they're great actresses and actors. You can't take 2 little clips of her acting decently, which she isn't. I'm just saying hypothetically, let's say she was acting well. That doesn't detract from the many, many moments where she's bad. And you accuse me of, manipulating clips and showing what I want to show, and only giving one example of her giving a bad performance, or one example here of her giving a bad performance. But when you do the same thing, instead you gave 2 examples. Wow, you really convinced me with those clips you showed. Don't you understand that my reviews are long? They're long. So I have to cut down on examples a bit, because I assume if you've seen the movie that you know what I'm talking about. So I don't have to go into depth with everything. With every little... I don't have to explain every character and show a clip of every time Gal Gadot wasn't good. Because if you've seen the movie and you agree with my point of view, then you know this. And if you don't agree with my point of view, then you don't have to watch the video. Or you can make a video like this, which is fair.
Bad music.
All of you.
And then we get bad music as she looks at a...
Bad music? Let's play the track real quick. I don't know, sounds pretty good to me.
No. First of all, this is a matter of opinion, but it's the most cliche superhero score. It's got every element of it. It's got a choir, it's got like this little crescendo, and then the drums come in. Oh, boom, bada boom. It's corny. And you could say that's what they were going for, but I'll say, I don't really care, because I'm not into that kind of thing. But again, matter of opinion.
I know I'm arguing a lot of subjectivity right now, but it's really how I think.
Then we transition to a horrible...
Yes, that's how you think. That's why it's this amazing thing called people have different opinions. And yet you feel the need to make a video just saying, well, I disagree. That's what this video is saying. Because every, you think objective legitimate point is not an objective legitimate point. And everything that is subjective is you just going like, yeah, I think differently. Well, yeah, I think differently too. Because we're 2 different human beings. What do you know?
What if I didn't use a sword?
Fighting does not make you a hero.
Just a shield then. No sharp edges.
I know she's like 2 years old, but I don't care. See that movie, The Florida Project? That girl was only 3 days old, and she was great.
Well, speaking of subjectivity, I don't really see his complaint about the actress. She's bright and enthusiastic, which is exactly the qualities that best contrast the attitude her mother has.
Really? But see, these are just... Oh, she's bright and enthusiastic. No, she's not bright and enthusiastic. If you watch her in the movie, she's fucking terrible. She's terrible, and she has a terrible accent.
To her training to become a warrior. Oh yeah, Diana's mother. Ralph doesn't mention her a lot, but luckily I'm here to fill in the context a little bit, huh? So Hippolyta just...
Why do you need to fill in the context? Wonder Woman's mother is such an insignificant part of the movie. Really. I mean, she's in it a little bit in the first 20 minutes. I didn't even feel the need to mention it because I don't think I even needed to. Like, I can't mention every single thing in this 2.5 hour long movie. I gotta cut some stuff out. You know what? They're probably, because this does happen quite often, there are parts where I discuss things like this, or Wonder Woman's mother or whatever, and I find the point so uninteresting, or the segment so unnecessary, that I just cut it out of the review. Because I like to entertain people. And I can't make a fucking 2 hour long video about Wonder Woman. There's a point where you gotta go, alright, this battle ain't even worth fighting. If you want to fight this battle right now over Wonder Woman's mother, I'm willing to fight it.
Her to die fighting Ares, but eventually relents and gives her the tiara as a symbolic sign of her acceptance. It's rather nice, actually. Also, her sister dies after training Diana, and that's rather sad. But
no,
anyway.
it isn't, because we never got to know that character. We get to know her a little bit on the most surface base level. We get to know her. We get to know that, oh, she's like a strong mentor for Diana, and Diana's known her a long time. So when she dies, you go, oh my god, the woman Diana knew for a long time died. How sad. but the movie never earns that moment, and I never genuinely feel sad about it. Like, let's take, great example. Let's go back to Guardians of the Galaxy 2, when Yondu dies. That's a genuinely sad scene, because we get to know and like Yondu, and Yondu has influence over the story and is in it a lot. And we get to know Yondu as a person. And a big thing about Yondu is he's a very flawed person. He's not perfect, but he tried to be a good father to Chris Pratt, even if it's in his own sick way. So when he died, I actually felt something. And you could say, oh, it's not fair to compare Yondu to this woman, because this woman was in it for 10 minutes, and Yondu was in it for 2 movies. And it's like, yeah, it's unfair, but it's called writing a good script. And, you know, if you're going to kill off a character, you got to build it up a lot, so that when they do die, you actually feel something. And I don't see what purpose this woman dying in the movie served, aside from making Diana get a little mad. But she never once said, oh, this is for Claire from House of Cards. This is for Robin Wright.
Why'd they even have to show her as a kid? Couldn't they just start the movie with her as a teenager in training? Oh yeah, it's because we need a mainstream audience to like this movie as quick as possible. So if we show a cute kid, the audience will go, oh look, it's a cute kid, I'll automatically like her.
Well, that's certainly one interpretation, but it's also to help establish to the audience a lot of key plot.
Alright, so it's just a quick editing tip. Fucking master of making videos. Make sure your text is in frame. Just a little tip. And I'm completely aware that they probably took this from Superman. But yeah, Superman used that trick in 1978 because it wasn't a trick back then. It was just a thing that the writers went, what if we showed Superman as a kid? You know? And Superman being a kid is key to his backstory because he came here as a kid. So we need to see him land on Earth as a kid, and then we can transition to when he's an adult. But then, Superman 1978 was successful, and they saw that they used the, as a little kid, and audiences sympathize with a little kid really quick. They saw they used that trick, and so all these superhero movies incorporated that into all their movies. They always showed the superhero as a kid, and then it became a cliche. That's what happens. That's why you can't directly take from a movie from 1978 that's, one of the big staple superhero movies. Because everything that movie did is now a cliche because everyone took from it because it was successful. There's no excuse for having this cheap, lazy gimmick of showing Wonder Woman as a kid. Not much happens. Well, all we get from her is her drive. That's all we get from her in that entire chapter of her as a little kid. Because the acting is horrible from that little girl. And she doesn't really do anything important plot-wise. So what I'm saying, and what I suggest in the video, I mean, you're all for, oh, I take clips out of context. You take clips out of context, too. What I'm saying is just start the movie as her as a teenager. We see that she fights hard, she's training, and she tries. She really wants to be a great warrior. And we totally get that from us seeing her as a teenager. And it would completely remove the problem of it being cliche and the actress being terrible.
Points that wouldn't really work as well when she's a teenager. Specifically information
but again, that's subjective.
About the sword, the mythology of the film, and hints about her otherness. What teenager likes to listen to bedtime stories, after all?
Yeah, what teenager likes to listen to exposition? You're right. So let's make her a little kid so her mother can regurgitate exposition to her. You know, if we're gonna go off about the opening having pointless narration, she might as well introduce the whole Ares story in the opening narration. But she doesn't even do that. We gotta wait for that exposition scene later on. And here's the bad special effects.
So this is a good introduction to the VFX.
While I agree that the green screen's a little iffy, I'm more
annoyed. A little iffy.
While I agree that the green screen's a little iffy, I'm more annoyed that you cut out the payout to the scene, since it's really cute and charming.
Hello, Mother. How are you today?
Yeah, there you go.
That's not cute and charming, first of all. that's shit. But second of all, what did that little clip have to do with the point I was making? I wanted to show that to illustrate, put the kernel in the audience's head that there are bad visual effects in this movie, and we will be discussing it later. This is another thing I do. I introduce little seeds, little nuggets early on that are bad, and then we'll elaborate on them later on. And what this does is it makes people want to watch the whole video, because they know there's a bad point that they also agree with, and so they have to watch the whole video to get to that point. I mean, you act like I'm just a fucking idiot who throws clips together, when really everything is very well structured out. I mean, it's the reason I make the big bucks, boy.
There you go, you're happy. Oh, but now we're getting to the dark part of the story. Change your face. Oh yeah, now you're sad. Now you're sad.
Ignoring how he's still harshly criticizing a child's performance.
I am, because she shouldn't be in the movie. It's not even the kid's fault. It's the writers, it's everyone's fault making the movie for even writing her into the movie. Because when you're making a movie, you should know your limitations. And one of those limitations would be, okay, we need to find a child actress who's good. And there aren't many of them. So you'd either have to get a really goddamn good casting person to find a really good little girl actress. And there are little girl actresses who are great, such as the girl from the Florida Project. And they probably should have gotten her. She even kind of looks like the girl. I don't know if she could pull off the Wonder Woman accent. But yeah, I am going to criticize an actress's performance because it's not good, and it takes you out of the movie. Anything that's not good in a movie should be removed.
I thought it was a little bit odd that he put in a good 2-3 seconds of just her face reacting to something with no audio playing whatsoever. Let's just fix that real quick.
This was Ares, the god of war.
Okay, so this is stupid. First, there is no audio in that one clip of her looking. The audio comes before that clip of her looking. This is Ares, the god of war. There's a shot of Ares, and then we cut to Wonder Woman, or the little girl, and you just hear from the orchestral score. So, did you want me to take the part with Ares, that little audio clip, and move it over to under this girl's shot? Is that what you wanted me to do? And on top of that, I don't understand how showing that extra second makes this performance any better. If a performance is good, I could shut all the audio off, and you'd still fucking get the emotion. If I remove the audio from the scene from There Will Be Blood, where Daniel Day-Lewis says, "I'll drink your milkshake," that doesn't make the performance bad. In fact, it makes you go, wow, this is a really good performance, because even without audio, I can totally understand this character's emotion. So this is a silly point.
Yes, that's right. He made it the first time Diana hears the name Ares and tried to hide it as bad acting by removing part of the context. Once you notice the manipulation, it sticks out rather badly.
It's not manipulation. I'm not saying that, I mean, reviews are going to have some amount of manipulation, because I'm only showing what I want to show to convey my point, right? And I guess the only way to not be manipulative is to just show the entire movie and narrate on top of it. But again, I want to make an entertaining video.
I'll be pointing these sort of things out as we go, because I find them to be rather dishonest and bad for the points that he's trying to make.
Yeah, it's dishonest for me to do that. She's not a good actress, dude. I could show every fucking clip of her in the movie with all the audio still intact, since that's so important to you. And it would still be bad, because she's not a good actress. And it's because she's 2 years old, I get it. But, you know, what are you gonna do? Again, she's not literally 2 years old, okay? I'm joking again. She's probably 7 or 8 or 10. I don't know how old she is. God.
So we hear a whole story about how Ares forced a bunch of men to fight each other. So Zeus made some kind of weapon to defend humanity against Ares. And in this scene, we get to see the weapon. So at this point in the movie, I think it's pretty obvious that this piece of shit isn't the weapon that's going to defeat Ares. But in fact, Zeus created Diana to defeat Ares.
The God Killer. It's beautiful.
It was so obvious to me, I don't know why this movie acts as if I'm not supposed to get this. It's literally the most obvious thing in the world, and this movie treats it like it's a big twist.
I don't know, I felt the focus on this plot point was not in how obvious it was, but in how it creates some really good emotional drama between Diana and the rest of her tribe. Looking at Richard Donner's Superman, a parallel can be drawn between Diana's otherness and Clark's. The movie focuses on how powerful she is, certainly, but it's more about how this affects her personally. Using this power, but also having to account for how this affects the people around her. Anyway, even if you did notice it, there's a lot of tiny nuances that add depth on rewatches regardless, so it doesn't really bother me.
There's no nuances in this movie at all. Everything is really, really obvious and on the nose. Like, he's gonna show this clip. Let's just see how nuanced it is.
Weapon that's strong enough to kill a god. Can I see it?
The first, like, 20...
Yeah, that's not nuanced at all. I saw that the first time in the movie. When she made that face, I went, oh fuck, she's probably the weapon. That's when I started to think that. That's not nuanced. I mean, it might be nuanced for someone who hasn't seen a lot of movies, and I'm not going to insult them like, oh, you haven't seen a lot of movies, therefore my opinion's, means more than yours. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I've seen a lot of fucking movies. So I've seen this plot point a lot. So when I saw Diana's mother make that face, and I pay attention to actors' performances, because I enjoy watching lots of movies. When I saw that, I went, oh, she's probably the weapon. And that only, became more and more obvious as the movie went along.
20 minutes of this movie is so goddamn boring. It's just so generic and cheesy, and the action isn't good.
Well, it's a good thing I mentioned all that stuff about her relationships to her mother and her sister and the tribe, because he completely glosses over it. It's fine to think this section is boring, but it's also essential to understanding why she is the way she is, and it's a bit wrong to not—
Yeah, but you can show how she was the way she was effectively, and you can do that not effectively. You can show a relationship with her mother in a way that's interesting, and the relationship with her and Claire from House of Cards, Robin Wright, and you can make that interesting. But the point I'm making is the movie doesn't do that, because the little girl actress is terrible, the mother isn't an interesting character, even a little bit, the twist is obvious, and they resulted to poor dialogue and bad visual effects and cheap tricks to convey this point, instead of actually showing Wonder Woman as a character. I would have thoroughly enjoyed 20 minutes of Gal Gadot, or a teenage actress who looks like Gal Gadot, learning and growing and becoming a hero, without any of these lame gimmicks and these bad visual effects and bad writing. But unfortunately, the movie has all of those same trappings, so I didn't enjoy it. And again, that's a matter of opinion. It cannot bother you, but it does bother me. And it's not manipulative for me to show clips from the movie that are bad.
not dive into the reasons for that.
Everything's so on the nose and cliche, and the music's so melodramatic.
But I was missing the kind of superhero movie that got me interested in the first place.
Yeah, a cliche, bad movie. That's the kind of movie that got me into superhero movies in the first place. No. Excitement, originality, a hero who, puts herself or himself in harm's way for the greater good of humanity. That's why I watch superhero movies. Wish fulfillment to a certain extent, right? Because you kind of want to be the superhero. And none of that happens in this. I mean, if you're a little girl, then yeah, maybe. And I say this in the video. I say, if you're a little girl, this movie's for you. But I'm not a little girl. I'm a 20-year-old man. I mean, if you want to call me a man, you could say I'm a boy. I guess that's acceptable too. Point is, I'm not... This is not made for me. So I can only look at it as the human being I am. And as the human being I am, I thought it was a cliche, boring piece of shit. And see, this is... I can accuse you of doing the same shit. You cut out a large section of my review, and a large section of you debunking it. I could go, that's manipulative, right? What if I made some good points here that you couldn't refute? And that's why you're fast-forwarding. I don't know. See? Really easy.
So when Chris Pine shows up, this is when the movie starts to get better. I like this scene quite a bit. We're introduced to his character. It's funny. And we're given some plot info that's important. I like this scene too. So then they run away on a boat, and I think this is actually the best scene in the movie. The acting and dialogue here are pretty on point. They have really great chemistry here.
While I'm annoyed that he didn't go into much detail on these scenes, I agree that they're well done and introduce a lot of information effectively, so let's move on.
And then we're introduced to the villains. We'll get into this dog shit later.
Since he's rather determined to mention something and then immediately move on, allow me to—
Again, with the, I'm placing a kernel. Right now, in this segment we're in the review, we're talking about, what I say, is it the story? We're focused on one thing. So, in this point in the movie, while I'm focusing on this one thing, another point comes up. The enemy, the villain, which I think is bad. This will be something I mention later in the review. So again, I put the little seed there. The villains are bad. Here's an example of why the villains are corny. But we will talk about this later, because right now we're not focused on that shit. It's how I structure everything, and it works, because I get hundreds of thousands of views on it.
show what the scene is even introducing.
Shall we?
Huh, that's rather effective.
No, it isn't. Again, it's cliche. We're gonna have our villain appear bad. How do we make him appear bad? Instead of him doing something, you know, interesting or different, we're gonna do the same cliche bullshit where he turns around and shoots one of his men for no reason because he was a little annoyed. This has been in so many movies, and it's tired now. I'm tired of seeing it.
It also introduces Dr. Poison's strength-enabling chemicals, but we'll get to that when Ralph does.
I don't know if this is supposed to be ironic or not. Yeah, Etta Candy is not funny. And you're gonna fast forward that entire segment where I show how unfunny and useless she is, because it doesn't, you know, align with what you think.
So they go to a bar, they meet up with a group of token minorities, and they form—
Whoa, token minorities? Are you serious? They aren't token at all. They have realistic flaws, and they generally don't play into stereotypes, along with contributing to the thematics in many cases.
You're here for profits, then?
No better place to be.
Nowhere better to be than in a war where you don't take a side.
I have nowhere else. The last war took everything from my people. We have nothing left.
To say these characters are token minorities is to miss how they affect the film and are important to its overall conclusion.
Wonder Woman wants to go out there.
What?
Okay, you know what? That is a good point. Again, those characters are only there, again, to serve the thematic purpose of the film and not to actually be characters in the movie. And that was more what I was going for. That they threw in minorities to prove their point and not to actually give them any character. And none of them really do have any character. They're all there just to, like that Native American guy, he just says, oh, I don't know, what do you say? My people were blah, 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 blah. Again, showing how corrupt and evil humanity is. But they're not really characters. They don't really change or grow at all, and you never get a sense for who they are. Probably because they're not good actors. But I do see what you're saying. So you do have a point there that they're not just thrown in because to keep it diverse, you know. However, are they actually characters? No.
Well, we're gonna have to hold this thought for part 2. I do love me a good sequel hook. Cue the credits music,
Yeah, me too. So yeah, that was that. Maybe when part 2 comes around, I'll talk about it, who knows. You'll probably want to make a video responding to this. I just noticed this, like, in the middle of watching this video. It says, let's just sink this channel into the ground. Why? You're gonna sink my fucking channel into the ground?